Hello, everyone. This is Manoj Tandon, your host of Dark Rhino's Security Confidential. Today, we are honored to have Greg Edwards join us. Greg is the CEO of CryptoStopper, a ransomware protection service that automatically detects and stops active ransomware attacks. He has been a technology entrepreneur since 1998, which makes me feel young. That's great. And has founded many businesses, including Axis Backup, a backup and disaster recovery company for the insurance industry that he founded a few years before CryptoStopper. He is a skilled person in disaster recovery, cloud computing, and network security, just to name a couple things. We're honored to have him on the show. Thank you for being here, Greg.
Thanks
How are
for having
you?
me, Manoj.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have another entrepreneur on here. We get them from time to time, and they're always. I can't say that I've had not one person that's been boring. They're all very interesting characters, and
well,
I
well,
so
good. We want to
let's
keep
start with that.
we want to keep the audience entertained for sure. We don't want to put
Yeah,
people to
there
sleep.
is. Hey, you know what? Edutainment is a thing, and we're trying to go down that path. So, give us a little bit about your character background. You know, what how did you get into, first of all, starting your own businesses? Because you've done a couple of them. What was that
It,
journey for you?
yeah. So I mean, I think I was born an entrepreneur. I mean, I was detailing cars and hiring my buddies to do the hard work when I was about 12. So I formally started the first company when I was 24 and really had no idea what I was doing. But actually still own that company today. I absentee own a managed services business that I still own today.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, I think it started at a very young age.
in your journey as an entrepreneur. Are there some guidances you can give in terms of anyone that's contemplating it? Is there any reality checks you want to throw out
It-
there?
Well, I mean, some of just the standard of it, it's not easy. I mean, it is a ton of hard work. You've got to be able to buckle down. But I think that the probably the number one thing that I just did natively and didn't recognize this in myself even, but it was taking action and going and not being afraid to take that first step. And at 24, I did that unknowingly and not even realizing that other people wouldn't do that. Right. But so whether it's bringing a product to market or going out on your own and starting a services business, take that first step and go get the first client or release Rev 1 and go get someone testing it in the real world.
So what about the fear of failure?
I mean, again, so that's something that I did, fortunately or unfortunately, did not have. I didn't ever have a fear of failure. Now I've grown into that with age, and I think that the more because I'm a fail fast kind of entrepreneur and go iterate and try the next thing and make sure that it's working, and if you fail, you've got to learn from it. So
Uh,
but you can't be afraid of failure.
yeah, I'm glad that you answered it. I couldn't have teed that up any better. That was the answer that I think I wanted everybody to hear, that failure is not necessarily a bad thing if you're going down the entrepreneurship
It-
road. In fact, it's almost necessary
it-
to become really successful.
Absolutely. And for me, early on, like failure wasn't even a thought, like that wasn't even an option. And so now I view failure as a positive thing, and there are failures that certainly still happen, but you've got to
Sure,
learn from those and take it for what it is. That not every, I mean, if you never try anything, you'll never fail, right?
that's
So,
true.
but
That's
don't be that person.
yeah, that won't be a very interesting life, will it?
Right.
So I guess before we move into some hardcore cybersecurity topics here, I just on the subject of entrepreneurship, do you think that this is something that could be taught in school?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there is an element, like if you look at it in a sports scenario, there's an element of talent for sure, but I think entrepreneurship is something that can be taught. And I think talking through dealing with fear, dealing with failure, those are the biggest things. It's not, I mean, anyone can come up with lots of ideas. It's a matter of implementing and not fearing that failure to go do it. And then, then you have to be able to execute. And there's a big difference between entrepreneurs that can go start something and get it from 0 to 1 between and other entrepreneurs that can get it to 0 to 10 million.
That's
And
they are very different skill sets, actually.
very different. Yep. And I'm one that I'm the 0 to 10 million, but not the 10 million to 25 million.
Yeah,
I'm ready to turn it over to someone else at that point.
and it's important to know that. But that is where all the innovation happens,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. That's the fun
After that, you're
stuff.
getting into operational effectivity, right?
Right.
Which becomes an analytical exercise, and I guess that was the point in asking the question, because at the university level, when we see a lot of the curriculums for these, and I love picking on them, because you look at the entrepreneurship programs, they're often based on a lot of analytical, objective things, which is important. Like, how do you analyze the market? How do you gauge yourself against the competition? Okay, those are all fun things, but what you spoke about, that fear of failure, getting over, taking that first step, that's where the real magic is. And yeah, and you got
It
it,
is. Well, I think at the university level that a lot of the entrepreneurship programs have come out of their MBA programs.
yes, they
And
have.
it's very, very different skill sets between related, but very different skill sets between an MBA program and an entrepreneurship program.
I couldn't agree with you more. So with that being said, let's talk about CryptoStopper.
All right,
How did
let's
this
talk
come?
about some
How did
yeah.
Yeah? How did this company come about? What's the story? What's the backstory here?
Yeah, so I started an offsite backup and disaster recovery company in 2007. And we started seeing the rise of ransomware as far back as 2012. And
Okay,
if you recall, that's really when Bitcoin was introduced in 2009, but 2012 is when it really started to take off. And if you look at the rise of ransomware, it completely coincided with cryptocurrency becoming available and mainstream. And we were seeing those ransomware attacks nonstop in the offsite backup business. We did
really?
so. To give an example of we weren't a huge company specialized in insurance agencies, but during Hurricane Sandy, we did 9 simultaneous recoveries on the East Coast. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, all
Is
at the
that
same
because
time.
their data centers went down, or is it because of ransomware that you
So
had to
we
do
were
those?
their data center. I mean, at that point, these were on-site servers that
Okay.
were all running. I mean, the cloud that company was started before the cloud exist. I mean, clouds always existed, right? It was, but
Oh, we had it in
before
the
the cloud was
'70s.
what it is today. Um, but 9 simultaneous recoveries during Hurricane Sandy. We then had a follow up of one weekend that we did 13 simultaneous recoveries because of one ransomware strain. So I was seeing this happening in real time and knew that this problem was, I mean, I knew probably in 2014, 2015 timeframe is when I knew this is going to be a serious, serious problem. And it was a good time. So I exited from the offsite backup company in 2016 with no real intent of developing our own software,
Okay.
but with the intent of starting an MSSP to to go similar to Dark Rhino to go protect companies and put in the right tools. Well, we were using advanced EDR. We were using Alien Vault back at the time before anyone had ever even heard of
Right.
EDR and SIMs or anybody was implementing them. And ransomware attacks were still happening. And so we built a PowerShell script. The very first version of CryptoStopper was a PowerShell script. One of my engineers that's still with me today came to me and said, why don't I've got this idea?" And built a PowerShell script that would deploy bait files and then monitor those bait files and stop an active attack. Took about 9 seconds, which was way too long. But over time, we developed that into an actual application, built a Windows native driver to be able to collect the information, and built our what we call post execution termination algorithm to watch for that
Okay.
actively running ransomware attack and kill it. So that seems like it was a long-winded answer to your question.
No, but
How
this is
is
all before Wannacry became a thing.
Yeah, yeah. It was about that time frame. We had developed the PowerShell script before that. But yeah, it was in that same time frame, 2017.
So, going back to the disaster recovery company, Access Backup, how did you guys prevent your backups from getting infected? Now we've seen that happen quite a bit.
Yeah, so I mean, that was just good hygiene. It wasn't, I mean, it was just good cybersecurity practices and the way that we implemented it. So for every one of our clients, we did a white glove setup of their initial backup and required them to set an encryption key that wasn't used in their existing system. So, having passwords that weren't the same across an entire network, like that, that was craziness in 2010.
Oh, even today, I can tell you there are still Oracle databases out there with the default
It,
passwords in place.
it's
You'll find them.
insane. It's insane, isn't it? And so that really, I mean, it was just good hygiene practices from the start where we had their offsite backups encrypted with a password that they set that was different from their local admin passwords.
So, why is it that companies, even today, they really struggle with getting a great disaster recovery program in place? I'm sure.
It's it's hard. That's why it takes time. It's not, I shouldn't say it's hard because it's really not that hard with the right tools, but it takes time. And the typical IT guys are too reactive and don't have someone holding them accountable to test their DR. So we back at Axis Backup, we would do a week long test where we would send everybody home. I mean, this was before remote working was remote
A
working,
thing.
right? So we would say, okay, on this week, and typically did it in July. I don't know why it was July, but typically in July, we'd say, okay, this week, the office has been destroyed. Now
Okay.
what? And again, small company, 20 employees, so it wasn't like 20,000 employees and you got to figure it out. But still, I mean that I mean you talk about testing your disaster recovery.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, you're actually putting it to work. You're seeing from zero to hero. How long does that time take, and
right,
how does it work?
right, right. And I mean, and this would have been back again in that 2010 to 2015 timeframe, and so we were using multiple data centers, and we could work remotely even back then. And so it was a matter of, okay, we'll go home and we connect through our VPN and we work. And that being able to do that is very different between a 20 employee company and even a 200 employee company. But testing the DR isn't that much harder. But that's really what it comes down to, is actually not just doing a tabletop test, but actually recovering and how long, what is that real RTO number, not just a target of what we think it is, but what's it
Right.
actually going to take.
Yeah, and I think this is where the executive team has to get on board and understand how critical that exercise is, and not just be an impediment in the way of it.
Absolutely.
Because I, I can, you have to go with the assumption, and anyone listening, it's, there will be an attack. It's just the fact that it hasn't happened to your firm is a matter of providence. It's just,
R- Absolutely. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, we both know that putting in the layered security, doing defense in depth, like those are all the right things to be done. And even when you do that, you can't guarantee 100% protection.
you cannot. You're
You're
exactly correct.
you're making yourself a harder target. And
That's
if you can get to, whatever percentage, you're lowering your risk of being attacked. If you're not doing those things, it's just a 50-50 toss up.
yeah.
And
And maybe you're comfortable with that, at which point I guess you don't need cybersecurity. If that's
it,
your risk tolerance, you're like, yeah, to heck with it. Okay. I mean, that's a choice, I guess.
well, but I think that CEOs should really understand that risk. And that's the piece that they don't. They're just sticking their head in the sand and saying, not worried about it.
I
Whereas
think
if Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think a lot there's also that IT communication back to the executive team. It's that, the folks who are in charge of infosec oftentimes are speaking a language that the decision makers don't understand. Right? It's taking
Absolutely.
a really complicated topic and being able to summarize it down into digestible chunks.
Yeah, and depending on the size of the company, if your IT department, if you don't have C-level folks in your IT department, which if you're a company of 1,000 or less, you're not going to have you might have a CTO, but they're not necessarily going to be C-level
Right.
CTO, and they have a hard time communicating what those true risks are. And yeah, it's hard if the CEO doesn't dig in and doesn't understand and
Yep.
has an IT department that isn't communicating the risk properly and doesn't have the ability to, then yeah, it's gonna be a mess.
Well, and that brings it to the next point here, that even if you had a phenomenal disaster recovery program and it all works and you've tested it, it still doesn't really, it affects a big chunk of the risk from ransomware. But when you look at the remaining parts, you might be able to get back online, but your data is out there now. So you still have the brand issues. You still have the personal privacy laws that come into place. And you still face the threat of fines and legal actions and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, these are the exact reasons that I started CryptoStopper and split off. So from the once we developed that initial PowerShell version,
Okay.
started using it, then within our own environments, then it was a transition where, okay, this makes sense to sell this to other MSSPs and other MSPs, so that they can use it, because it really is that rather than having to depend on your disaster recovery system, you can depend on CryptoStopper to stop that attack. And what we built is that post execution termination algorithm to recognize, okay, ransomware is running, let's kill it, and kill it in less than a second so that it doesn't take the entire network down. It doesn't allow the exfiltration of the
Right.
data. And it becomes a security incident instead of a full-blown disaster.
I'm going to ask you to walk us through the anatomy of a ransomware attack here in a second. But I want to step back because this is a fascinating topic on ransomware. Is Wannacry? Everyone's heard about this. It's been written about ad nauseum. to a degree, it's even relevant today. What did WannaCry do that was so um,
Yeah,
paradigm changing for
yeah. So
ransomware?
so it was the first that I'm aware of. There may have been others before it that it just didn't get the notoriety, but really was the first crypto worm. So it was self-propagating. So that was, I mean, there's so many things that were unique about WannaCry, but that was the biggest one, was the fact that it was self-propagating. And and then add to that that it also exploited a vulnerability that only the US government 1 month before WannaCry came out had the ability to use. So that you add that exploit, the fact that it was a worm, and that it was perpetrated by a state actor, being everyone believes that it was North Korea. I mean, though for a ransomware attack, and that one was financially motivated, unlike Petya and not Petya, which
Yeah.
were also state actor attacks. Um, and then the last relevant thing maybe about the WannaCry was the live off the land attack. So what we call either fileless attack or live off the land. So there wasn't anything new introduced to the environment. It's running an attack off of what's already there.
And it needed a particular vulnerability that could have been patched. If you had patched your systems, it couldn't be executed.
It,
And it brought to right it did not it brought to light the fact that vulnerability management is a serious thing.
yeah, yeah, it was the Eternal Blue was
Eternal Blue, that's
the,
that. Thank
the
you.
vulnerability. Yep. Yep.
I guess it brings to light something else too. Like when you mentioned the U.S. government, only they were the only ones that had the ability to exploit it. I guess that's, to me, it's kind of a fair warning that if we create back doors in systems that quote unquote only the good guys could use, there's no way they're going to remain
It,
with the good guys. It's not
yeah,
going to happen.
yeah. I mean that we may have to have another whole
I'd love to.
whole podcast for that discussion.
Because we've had, there's been, and it's been an emotional topic. Well, Apple should, or Microsoft should, give the keys to the kingdom to
Yeah,
a state actor. Well,
yeah, yeah, but
yeah, but and it's going to be a big but. I don't see those keys staying with the
no
state
way.
actor.
Yeah, no way.
It just would not.
It
So
can't happen.
why is WannaCry still relevant today? I mean, it's still out there.
Yeah, so the the fact that it still lives is crazy to me too. But I think the thing that why it goes on and why we still talk about it is because of just the devastation that it caused and the destruction that it caused in the environment and opened the door for those live off the land. There were live off the land attacks prior to that, but that now really has become the major focus, at least of the top ransomware as a service companies. So Lockbit is one that they're very prevalent in using live off the land techniques.
Wow. So that should be a pause for concern for all of our listeners. So please take a note of it. Thanks, Greg. Walk us through the anatomy of a ransomware attack. How do these typically take place?
Yeah, so the most common is still through email and a link or an actual attachment in email. So that's still the most common way and comes in, the user interacts with it and starts that ransomware attack. So that's the most common. And just to walk through what then happens, that ransomware, once the user starts it,
Yeah.
then it enumerates typically the network. And so it goes out and looks for any network shares, any files that are out there, and makes a determination. This isn't isn't, it's all scripted, so it's not necessarily a human making that determination,
Okay.
but then starts attacking those data folders, and whether it encrypts and then exfiltrates or straight encrypts to begin with, um, it it starts encrypting files and destroying the network without anyone typically even knowing that it's happening. So that's,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
so question on that. So, as soon as this process kicks off, does the ransomware not phone home? When, at what point does it phone home? When would a SOC notice this?
Yeah, so I mean, totally depends on the variant, but it wouldn't necessarily phone home immediately. If it's a an attack with an attachment and it's running and doesn't need to phone home, then it won't phone home
Okay.
immediately, and may just set a time bomb to say start at 6 p.m. on Friday, and it
Okay.
knows it's going to attack network shares, and it's going to start at 6 p.m. on Friday. Hasn't called home because it is a traditional malware that's running
Okay.
ransomware. So that's one type. Then the when you talk about the live off the land types, those will need to phone home. So that would be more, say, a user clicking on a link or exploiting a vulnerability, where then it's running a remote script. So then that's where it's going to phone home. But the thing is that these phone home calls aren't, they're not going to necessarily known bad actors, because those bad actors, I mean, they're constantly changing their their server to phone home to. So
That's right.
it's not, so the sim isn't necessarily going to pick up on that as an IOC yet.
Yeah, because even if you're watching the domains that you're and you have domain lists of known bad actors, there's a good chance it's going to get missed for
Yeah,
exactly the reason you just mentioned.
yeah. I mean, you've had to have seen, I'm sure within your guys' environment, you've seen these brand new
Oh
command and
yeah.
control centers that aren't, they're not on any list yet.
Well, one of the things that we've done, and this is a little tidbit for all the IT people out there that, or infosec people that they could probably try, and it's an interesting exercise, is as part of your network that is observable, put a completely Cyrillic configured system on there with a Cyrillic keyboard and whatnot, right? And see what happens, because you know you never you don't want to attack the Russian government, right? If you're a bad actor, because they don't like that. And if you're originating from that part of the world, it's interesting to see how the activity subsides. You can try this experiment for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
When they come across it, they're like, "Oh,
Yeah, that's
is this
interesting. I've not, that's one thing that I've not ever heard of anyone putting a honeypot out with that intention to see. But
well,
yeah,
I
that would be
now it's
interesting.
public knowledge. Give it a go. It's a replicable result. Um, do it,
Yeah,
and you'll
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
If it originates from that part of the world, those guys do like, oh shit, maybe this is a bad idea. Let's.
We'll stay off. Well, I mean, here's the thing. So it 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 is not illegal for a Russian citizen to run a ransomware attack on anyone other than Russian companies. So
Exactly.
there's no, like, they see that and say, "Oh, that's a Russian. Like, we don't want that might be Russian. This, we could get in trouble for this." As
That's right.
opposed to, if they're attacking a U.S. business, that's just their normal day, and there's nothing illegal about what they're doing.
Yeah, you're in their world. Yes, there's
R- r-
nothing illegal,
Yeah, no,
and
I
there's
didn't
not
say
much.
unethical, but
Now they might be breaking U.S. laws, but if you're in Russia, you probably really don't care. So that's irrelevant to
absolutely.
you. It's completely irrelevant to you. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I stopped you in the middle there. You were saying, going back to the ransomware
Yeah, so the
attack.
anatomy of a ransomware attack, the ones that we really, I mean, a CryptoStopper will protect against any kind of exfiltration or encryption ransomware.
Oh,
Um,
so it'll stop the exfiltration of data?
so we're actually adding that feature in one of our next releases, but it will, what it's watching for is that encryption happening, and almost all exfiltration, they're going to encrypt the files before they send them. So we're going to catch that before it goes out.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yep.
And is the technology of CryptoStopper running as a process, or is it actually a kernel modification? What's
So both actually. So there is a kernel driver that's collecting the information and then can take action, and then it's analyzing that data collected from the kernel.
okay? So the ransomware perpetrators, they can't stop the CryptoStopper processes from running. Would that be a fair
Correct.
statement?
Yes. Yep.
Because I would imagine that they know about you, and I'm
The-
sure there's somebody trying to figure out how to engineer their way around you.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And we've been preparing from the beginning for that.
Okay. How do you prepare for something like that? That's because those guys
Well,
are also innovating, right? That's
yeah,
and I
yeah,
guess it gets to the future direction of ransomware. So please.
yeah. I mean, it's a cat and mouse game always. I mean, we have to think like hackers, and we've written several variants of our own, say what I would call safe ransomware, so we've written fileless ransomware. We've got an attack simulator that we run, um, and so really understanding what those attackers, what are they going to do, what are they going to do to try to get around us, and always innovating to stop what we believe is going to be that next attack vector. And it's not so much about the attack vector for us, it's more about how does the attack take place, like what's
Okay.
once it runs, because again, we're on the damage control, not the prevention side. So this is post execution. Ransomware is now running, and that's actually easier from a protection standpoint and a damage control standpoint than prevention.
Hey,
That
it's
if that
zone
makes
defense
sense.
if we were playing football.
It's a right, right.
You know what? Let the guy make the catch. Don't let him go to the end zone, kind of a
Yep,
thing. But
yep.
if how so, but so when they kick off the process, I imagine they're going to encrypt. These guys are not using super high end encryption in the very early stages, right? Because the speed of it has to be really fast, which you can't do with a complex encryption scheme. Uh, What how much damage is done on that initial system, or is that itself contained as well by
Yeah,
CryptoStopper?
so typically what we'll see is anywhere from on the low end, one or two files to about a dozen files that are hit before
Got
CryptoStopper
it.
will kick in. And again, we're talking less than a second.
And are you able to decrypt those dozen files that?
So we don't. So that's another feature that we haven't
Okay,
added in yet, and really rely on backup and your traditional recovery
got
for
it.
that.
Got it.
And again, all about that damage mitigation so that it doesn't, because if CryptoStopper wasn't there, rather than running for 1 second at this point,
Oh,
it's going to run till it finishes.
now a lot of times what we see, and it's interesting, and I I was on um, a committee recently where they talked about this, that a lot of ransomware processes that are kicked off, that SIM tools or EDR tools have visibility to is not the whole picture, because a lot of them kick off ancillary processes that those systems do not detect, right?
Yep.
So with CryptoStopper, how are you addressing those ancillary
Well,
processes?
so really, so we're, I mean, at the heart of what we do is file integrity monitoring.
Okay,
So it's really about the files rather than the processes. I mean, we then go and kill the processes, but we're watching at that disk and file level to see the actions of ransomware.
okay. So where do you fit in a layered security architecture?
Yeah, so I mean, I am a huge proponent of the advanced EDR, SIM, all of those tools. So we fit in right alongside those. And if
Okay,
someone's not that advanced, we still CryptoStopper will still work. It's just our intent is that companies have a fully layered security and that CryptoStopper is a part of that. And the reason that I say that and the reason that I encourage companies to also have EDR and SIM is that CryptoStopper is not going to protect against the data breach. That's not what CryptoStopper is designed to do. If they're exfiltrating data and they encrypt those files and we recognize that and stop it, I mean that's great. But we're not there to detect and see that an attacker is dwelling on the system. That's not CryptoStopper is just designed to recognize those file changes and kill that. So it's designed to be as an add-on tool to the fully layered security model.
and there was an interesting stat out there, like the average enterprise. So I'm going to talk about the Fortune 1000, which I know is not of the listening audience here because most of our listeners are SMB, but still, in that space, in the Fortune 1000, on average, they have 60 cybersecurity tools in their environment, and they are having vendor anxiety. They're, because it completely flies in the face of vendor consolidation programs. So I wonder, you know, well, I guess let me get this opinion from you. Is that vendor consolidation a good thing, or having that multi-layered, independent defense and depth approach a better thing than vendor consolidation?
So I will say my long-term view is that vendor consolidation will be a good thing. The
Okay,
in the
long term.
short long term. So and
Okay,
when I say long term, 5 years, 5 year time frame. The in the short term though, I mean the issue of cybersecurity and the problems that we're having today are so varied, and the reason that that average is 60 tools is because the Cisco's of the world are not innovators anymore. And so the and
I
sorry if
couldn't
I
achieve this. You're awesome. Yeah, yeah, I did. People, I did not cue this up. I did not do this. He's not reading from a card. He's please, Greg.
so so it takes innovators and small companies, startups like CryptoStopper to recognize these threats in different ways to manage those threats. And then the vendor consolidation kicks in. But I mean, on the we're on the bleeding edge of the cybersecurity problem that we have. I mean, it's now been almost exactly 10 years since Bitcoin became mainstream and cryptocurrency became mainstream and really fueled the cyber crime that we have today. And so if you look at any industry, 10 years is about now. I mean, in modern history, it takes about 10 years for an industry brand new to really develop.
Right.
We're 10 years in right now. I mean, there was cybercrime before, but it wasn't like this. Cryptocurrency completely changed cybercrime. And so I went way off topic of your
No, no,
initial question,
you
but
this is fantastic information. Please keep going.
yeah. So long term, I think the vendor consolidation is a good thing. I think we're probably 5 years out or so from when that really when you can get as a company. I don't know if I want to be this bold as to say the one silver bullet tool because I don't think we'll be there in 5 years.
I
But
don't
you
know that
might,
we'll ever get there, but
yeah,
yeah.
I don't either. But you might go from the average of 60 tools down to 30.
Yeah. I can see that happening. That seems like a viable thing. And so from do you in terms of trying to help the market, do you see uh, what is the biggest impediment in companies acquiring CryptoStopper? What what's
So
preventing?
education and understanding the difference between damage mitigation and prevention.
Yeah, and I think that's there is a chasm between leadership thought and the infosec team there. There needs to be that bridge made because oftentimes when you're a fly on the wall in some of these conversations, you see decision makers saying, "Oh, you guys want another tool? Oh, that's going to be the silver bullet." You know, that's going to make us safe, but it's really understanding exactly what you've said. It's CryptoStopper is one more tool in a layered defense approach. It's prevention versus detection and response. They're both valid, both needed, but
It-
they have different fits in the layered infosec approach.
yeah, absolutely. And uh, until that consolidation of tools gets to a place where you can go from 60 down to 30, then I do see other companies out there building technology similar to what we have, and I don't love the competition, but there's room, and there needs to be. uh, I think 5 years from now, tools like CryptoStopper will be ubiquitous. I mean, it's you've got to have that layer between the detection of attack and just full on disaster recovery, and that's where we fit is that file integrity monitoring with
True.
automated action. And it's a prior to CryptoStopper coming out, I mean, there really were no other companies that were thinking about it in that way. And so in helping the market, I hope that we have helped the market, and I hope that we will continue to help to drive that innovation of, don't just think of it as 100% prevention or 100% disaster recovery.
Right.
There's an in between space there where that detection and automated action can mitigate damage.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you completely on that. Is your is your technology geared more towards the enterprise, or is the acquisition is it affordable by even mainstream companies, small
Affordable
medium
by
business?
mainstream companies, yeah. So, and we really have focused on the the SMB space through
Okay,
managed service providers and MSSPs.
fantastic. I That's important. That well, then you're on the right show because that's the majority of the
Perfect. Perfect.
that's the majority of the audience. So I know we're down to 3 minutes here. I wanted to give the floor to you to speak about anything you want to talk about in regards to anything that you have coming up, anything you want to plug.
Yeah, so actually we're at CompTIA in Chicago at the ChannelCon event. So
Okay,
definitely check that out this week. And then head out to our website. It's getcryptostopper.com, and
okay,
check out CryptoStopper and just see what it can do for your organization. And the last thing would be reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always happy to have more connections on LinkedIn. You can find me, Greg Edwards, and CryptoStopper, and I'll be the should be the first one. If there's another Greg Edwards within CryptoStopper, we have an issue.
Do you have a ransomware group or a CryptoStopper group on LinkedIn as well, by any
We
chance?
don't. That is a great addition that we should add, and something that we should get started.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting because it's a hot topic. We hear I can't think of a day that doesn't go by where there's somebody that we hear about got hit with
Oh,
a
it's
little.
yeah. I mean, the ransomware attacks are are going to continue. It's a matter of now what's the weakest link and what's the easiest target for them. So, I mean, one piece of suggestion in the whole layered security and defense in depth as a company, and if you're in the infosec department, make yourself a hard target and talk to your leadership in that way about we have to be the hardest target on our street. So let's go do that.
That sage advice. Well, Greg, we're out of time, but we really appreciated you being here. It's been a pleasure. And as you guys advance, please feel free to come back out on the show and enlighten us a little bit deeper into this world of ransomware. I wish it wasn't the case, but it's going to be for quite some time to come.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd love to come back.
Sounds great. Take care.